There's a quiet pressure that can begin to build after the initial confusion settles. Not at the start, when everything feels uncertain and unstable, but later, when things are a little calmer on the outside, and yet inside, a different kind of thought begins to form. I need to become a better version of myself. It can sound reasonable, even motivating, but underneath it, there's often something else. A sense that who you are right now isn't quite enough. Inside a high control religion, there is usually a very clear idea of who you're supposed to be, what you should value, how you should behave, what kind of person is considered good. And that identity isn't optional. It's reinforced through approval, belonging, and often moral significance. Over time, you don't just follow that identity, you measure yourself against it. Am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Am I becoming the right kind of person? That constant self-evaluation can feel normal when you're inside the system. But when you leave, something subtle happens. The external standard disappears, but the internal pressure often stays. After leaving, many people don't stop evaluating themselves. They just change the criteria. Instead of, am I a good member? It becomes, am I growing enough? Am I healing properly? Am I becoming who I'm supposed to be now? On the surface, this can look like progress, but the structure underneath is often the same. There is still a version of you that feels like a target, and a version of you that feels like it falls short. This is where self-improvement can quietly become self-pressure. Not because growth is wrong, but because it's being driven by the same kind of mechanism that once kept you in line. There's an assumption inside this pressure that often goes unnoticed. It sounds like this: who I am right now isn't enough to stand on. And when that assumption is in place, everything becomes conditional. Rest becomes something you earn. Confidence becomes something you achieve. Peace becomes something you arrive later. But this creates a constant sense of being slightly behind, even when nothing is actually wrong. This isn't a lack of discipline, and it isn't a failure to grow. It's a continuation of adaptation. Your mind learned to organize itself around becoming more aligned, more acceptable, more certain. So when the old system disappears, that pattern doesn't immediately stop. It redirects. Now it attaches to new ideas: healing, self-development, finding purpose, becoming your true self. But the underlying movement is familiar. I need to move away from who I am now. There's something important to understand here. Letting go of pressure does not mean you stop changing. It means change is no longer driven by inadequacy. There's a difference between I need to become someone else to be okay, and I can change over time without rejecting who I am now. That difference is not dramatic on the surface, but internally it changes how everything feels. Effort becomes less urgent. Growth becomes less forced. And your relationship with yourself becomes less conditional. For many people, this shift doesn't feel immediately relieving. It can feel unfamiliar, because if you're not pushing yourself to become something, what do you do instead? there can be a quiet uncertainty there. A sense of, if I stop striving, will I get stuck? But what often emerges instead is something more stable, a slower, more natural kind of change, not driven by pressure, not driven by fear, but shaped by understanding over time. This isn't about doing something differently straight away. It's more subtle than that. It might look like noticing when you're measuring yourself against an invisible standard, or catching the moment where your mind says, I should be further along by now. And instead of correcting it or replacing it with something more positive, just recognizing it for what it is. A familiar pattern trying to re-establish itself. Some people also notice that when they stop adding pressure, their energy returns in small, unexpected ways. Not all at once, but gradually, in ways that feel less forced. If you felt this pressure to become someone else, to improve, to fix, or accelerate yourself, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means your mind is using a pattern it learned in a very structured environment. A pattern that once made sense, but that you no longer need in the same way. You don't have to replace it with a new version of pressure. And you don't have to become someone else to move forward. There is nothing wrong with change, and there is nothing wrong with growth. But neither of those require you to reject who you are right now. For many people, the shift isn't in becoming something new, it's in loosening the belief that they were incomplete to begin with, and allowing change to happen without turning it into a condition for being okay. You do not need to become someone else. You're allowed to move forward from where you already are, slowly, without pressure, and without needing to prove anything along the way.